Welcome back to World Smarts Talk Show. I'm Dr. George A. Frem.
And I'm Miss Lily O'Brien.
We are now going to answer questions about globalization in the world today.
How are smaller countries being affected by globalization?
Smaller countries are really being taken advantage of, such as with workers, rights, and wages. In countries that don't have a very strong economy, they cannot pay their workers very much, so large companies like to move here in order to follow those limited regulations and increase their profits.
How are the children missing out by having full-time working parents?
The children don't have any direct teachers who would teach them about family history and culture. Take China, for example. The children have to be taught by their grandparents and kids shows. Everyone knows that grandparents spoil their grandkids, and that's exactly what's happening. The kids are being spoiled, especially since almost every family only has one child. They're missing out on having their parents teach them.
Are there children being forced to work?
Yes, there are children being forced to work in developing nations around the world. When the United States was developing, many children were forced to work in factories to support their families. In other countries, developing nations are taking the lazy baby steps into the modern world, and they must start somewhere, and they have to start with children.
How are larger countries being affected by globalization?
Larger countries are able to benefit more as they can expand their influence to more countries around the world. They are also able to integrate their foreign cultures or ideas into society, which can become a vital component. McDonald's, Nike, and Mercedes-Benz are all foreign companies that have a great influence on the United States.
How is the culture of the people being affected?
A country's culture would change due to people migrating to said country and sharing their culture. Over time, the two cultures start to blend together because of whatever memory manipulation occurred. People would pass history down orally and eventually write it down, so the cultures would get mixed and no one would ever have their original culture due to globalization.
What are the purposes of associations like the European Union, NATO, and the United Nations nowadays? Are they just used for trade?
The EU, NATO, and the UN's purpose are mostly to control trade and the exchange of money and other goods. They are also responsible for monitoring many countries around the world in peace and for relationships. Luckily, they've controlled most of the illegal trade that has happened since they were founded starting in the 1945s.
How is the earth being affected by globalization?
Globalization is causing the production of factories which pollute our air and increasing the amount of toxic chemicals, global warming, and the destruction of natural resources.
What is the future of globalization?
The future of globalization would be to impact as many people as possible and spread a country's influence around the world, such as how Nike has made itself a major trend in the American fashion, as well as many other countries.
How does globalization affect the world's economy?
Globalization forces the economies of each nation to be kind of forced together with other nations, causing a global trade equation.
Has globalization happened before, and if it has, when?
Globalization has happened before, and it happened when Christopher Columbus discovered the Americas. The Columbus Exchange, the scramble for Africa, and other conquests during the age of imperialism were part of that.
Was globalization a gradual or very sudden beginning?
Globalization had a very subtle beginning, but grew to be a great force in our world. It officially started in 1492 when Christopher Columbus sailed the Atlantic Ocean in search for gold, land, and the spread of religion. Many people will probably be surprised that globalization started all the way back then because of its recent boom in our economy.
Should we try to stop it?
Stopping globalization is like stopping the orbit of the solar system. You couldn't do it even if you wanted to. Everything revolves around something, and until you get rid of what controls the orbit, it'll just keep happening. In relation to the solar system metaphor, the people are the planets, and money is the sun. We always revolve around it, no matter how hard we try not to.
Thank you, audience, for all of your wonderful questions. We hope you learned something new today.
And that's all we have for now, but tune in tomorrow for our presentation on world hunger.